Base Hostess. How Labor Wars Killed the Twinkie Empire. In 1930, Jimmy Dewar, a baker at the Continental Baking Company, had a problem that would accidentally create one of America's most enduring food icons. The company's shortbread finger pans sat idle for months except during strawberry season, and Dewar saw an opportunity. He filled sponge cake with banana cream, creating what he called the Twinkie, named after a billboard he spotted for twinkle toe shoes. When bananas became scarce during World War II, the company switched to vanilla cream filling, and the modern Twinkie was born. Little did anyone know that this simple snack cake would become so embedded in American culture that people joked it could survive a nuclear apocalypse, yet it would ultimately be destroyed not by radiation or changing tastes alone, but by something far more human: the bitter warfare between labor and management that would rage for decades until it finally killed the company that created it. The Twinkie's rise to cultural dominance happened alongside the growth of its parent company through a complex web of mergers and acquisitions that would later contribute to its downfall. Continental Baking was purchased by ITT in 1968, then sold to Ralston Purina in 1984, before being spun off as Interstate Bakeries Corporation in 1995. Each transition loaded the company with more debt while fragmenting its operational structure. By the 2000s, Hostess Brands had become a Frankenstein's monster of different bakery companies stitched together, operating 18 separate and often incompatible computer systems across its facilities. The company ran 36 bakeries and over 500 distribution centers, but this sprawling network was inefficient and costly. More critically, the company had been built through acquiring unionized bakeries, each with their own labor agreements, work rules, and pension obligations. The Teamsters controlled delivery and warehouse operations, while the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers and Grain Millers International Union, known as BCTGM, represented production workers. These weren't just different unions, they were unions with fundamentally different cultures, priorities, and approaches to labor relations, setting the stage for the internal conflicts that would eventually tear the company apart. The first major crisis came in 2004 when Interstate Bakeries Corporation, as Hostess was then known, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The company was drowning in debt, burdened by pension obligations, and struggling with operational inefficiencies that its fragmented structure had created over decades of mergers. The bankruptcy process revealed the depth of the company's problems. Hostess had been operating with negative cash flow, burning through money while trying to service debt payments that consumed much of its revenue. The company's pension obligations alone were staggering, with underfunded plans that required massive contributions the company simply couldn't afford. During the bankruptcy proceedings, which dragged on for 5 years until 2009, management demanded significant concessions from workers. The unions agreed to wage cuts, benefit reductions, and changes to work rules, sacrifices that workers believed would save their jobs and restore the company to profitability. When Hostess emerged from bankruptcy in 2009, workers had given up approximately $110 million in annual compensation. However, the fundamental structural problems remained unresolved, and the relationship between management and labor had been poisoned by years of bitter negotiations and broken promises. The post-bankruptcy Hostess was supposed to represent a fresh start, but instead, it became a case study in how not to manage labor relations during a corporate turnaround. The company was now controlled by Ripplewood Holdings, a private equity firm that installed new management led by CEO Brian Driscoll. Almost immediately, tensions flared between the new ownership and the workforce. Workers discovered that while they had accepted significant pay cuts and benefit reductions, management was receiving substantial bonuses and compensation increases. In 2011, the company paid $1.8 million in bonuses to executives while simultaneously demanding additional concessions from workers. This created a toxic atmosphere of distrust that would prove impossible to overcome. The unions felt betrayed, having sacrificed to save the company only to watch management reward themselves while the business continued to struggle. Meanwhile, management argued that they needed to attract and retain talented executives to turn the company around, and that executive compensation was necessary for competitiveness. This fundamental disagreement over priorities and fairness became the fault line that would eventually split the company apart. The underlying business challenges facing Hostess went far beyond labor costs, though management and unions seemed locked in a battle that ignored these broader market forces. American eating habits were changing dramatically during the 2000s, with consumers increasingly avoiding processed foods, trans fats, and high-sugar snacks. Health consciousness was rising, childhood obesity had become a national concern, and parents were reading ingredient labels more carefully. Hostess products, with their long shelf life achieved through preservatives and artificial ingredients, were exactly the kind of foods that health-conscious consumers were avoiding. The company's signature products, Wonder Bread and Twinkies, became symbols of everything wrong with processed American food. Sales declined year after year as consumers shifted toward organic, natural, and artisanal alternatives. Hostess was slow to adapt, continuing to focus on its traditional product lines, while competitors like Pepperidge Farm and smaller organic bakeries captured market share. The company did attempt some product innovations, introducing whole grain versions of some products and reducing trans fats. But these efforts were too little and too late to reverse the fundamental shift in consumer preferences. The final crisis began in early 2012 when Hostess filed for bankruptcy a second time, and this time the company's approach to labor relations became openly adversarial. Management, now led by CEO Gregory Rayburn, demanded sweeping concessions that would fundamentally restructure the workforce and eliminate many of the protections that unions had fought for over decades. The company wanted to cut wages by up to 30%, slash pension contributions, reduce health benefits, and eliminate thousands of jobs through plant closures and route consolidations. Most controversially, management demanded changes to work rules that unions saw as attacks on their very existence. Under the existing contracts, Teamsters drivers could only deliver bread products, while a separate group of drivers delivered cakes and snacks. Management wanted to eliminate this distinction and cross-train workers, which would reduce the total workforce but also blur the lines between different union jurisdictions. The Teamsters, after intense internal debate and pressure from their membership, eventually agreed to most of management's demands, believing that saving some jobs was better than losing all of them. However, the BCTGM, representing the bakery workers who actually made the products, refused to accept what they saw as a fundamental assault on their members' livelihoods and dignity. The breakdown in negotiations revealed the deep philosophical differences between management's crisis-driven restructuring approach and labor's resistance to what they perceived as union-busting tactics dressed up as business necessity. Hostess management argued that the company was genuinely on the brink of liquidation and that only dramatic cost reductions could save it. They presented financial data showing continued losses, declining sales, and unsustainable debt service payments. From management's perspective, the unions were being unrealistic about market conditions and were essentially choosing to destroy the company rather than accept the new economic reality. The BCTGM saw things very differently. They argued that management had already proven untrustworthy during the previous bankruptcy, when workers had made significant sacrifices only to see the company's condition worsen while executives received bonuses. Union leaders believed that management was using the bankruptcy process to break the unions permanently, and that even if they accepted the proposed concessions, there was no guarantee that management wouldn't return with even more demands in the future. This mutual distrust created a negotiating environment where compromise became impossible, with each side convinced that the other was acting in bad faith. The situation exploded into open warfare in November 2012, when the BCTGM called a nationwide strike after the bankruptcy court imposed the company's final contract offer on the workers. The strike effectively shut down production at Hostess facilities across the country, with thousands of workers walking off the job rather than accept what they considered unacceptable working conditions. Management immediately declared that the strike would force the company into liquidation, setting a deadline for workers to return or face the permanent closure of all operations. This ultimatum backfired spectacularly, hardening opposition among workers who felt they were being threatened and bullied. The strike became a symbol of broader labor struggles across American manufacturing, with workers at other companies watching to see whether management could simply use bankruptcy threats to force acceptance of any contract terms they desired. Hostess plants fell silent, deliveries stopped, and the iconic brands that had fed America for generations suddenly vanished from store shelves. The company's threats of liquidation were initially seen as negotiating tactics, but as the strike continued and no products moved, it became clear that management was serious about shutting down rather than operating under the existing labor agreements. On November 16, 2012, Hostess Brands announced it was liquidating all operations, permanently closing 33 bakeries and 565 distribution centers, and laying off approximately 18,500 workers. The immediate cause was the BCT-GM strike, but the underlying causes ran much deeper through decades of financial mismanagement, failed mergers, changing consumer preferences, and toxic labor relations. CEO Gregory Rayburn blamed the unions for choosing to destroy the company rather than save it, while union leaders argued that management had made liquidation inevitable through years of poor decisions and adversarial tactics. The truth, as always in complex business failures, lay somewhere in between. The company had indeed been struggling with fundamental challenges that would have been difficult to overcome even with perfect labor relations. Declining sales, massive debt burdens, pension obligations, and an inefficient operational structure created a nearly impossible business situation. However, the complete breakdown of trust between management and labor eliminated any possibility of the cooperation that would have been necessary for a successful turnaround. Instead of working together to address the company's challenges, management and unions spent their energy fighting each other while the business collapsed around them. The liquidation of Hostess sent shockwaves through American popular culture as beloved brands that had existed for generations suddenly disappeared from stores. Consumers who had grown up with Twinkies, Ding Dongs, and Wonder Bread rushed to stockpile the remaining products, with some Twinkies selling on eBay for hundreds of dollars. The irony was not lost on observers that products legendary for their long shelf life had been destroyed not by time or nuclear apocalypse, but by human conflict. The broader implications extended far beyond snack cakes, as the Hostess failure became a case study in how labor management warfare could destroy value for everyone involved. Workers lost their jobs, management lost their company, creditors lost their investments, and consumers lost products they had enjoyed for decades. The assets were eventually sold to various buyers, with Apollo Global Management and Metropolis & Company purchasing the Twinkie brand and several others. These new owners reopened some facilities with non-union workers and significantly reduced workforces, bringing Twinkies back to market in 2013. However, the new Hostess was a much smaller operation, and many of the 18,500 workers who lost their jobs never found equivalent employment. The Hostess story serves as a cautionary tale about how internal conflicts can destroy even the most iconic companies when external pressures mount. The company's brands had survived the Great Depression, World War II, changing dietary trends, and countless business cycles, but they could not survive the complete breakdown of trust between the people who made the products and the people who managed the business. The tragedy is that both sides had legitimate concerns and valid arguments. Management was correct that the company faced severe financial challenges requiring dramatic restructuring, while labor was correct that they had already made significant sacrifices and were being asked to bear a disproportionate burden for problems they had not created. In a different environment, with more trust and better communication, these conflicts might have been resolved through compromise and shared sacrifice. Instead, they became a zero-sum battle where both sides lost everything. The death of Hostess Brands demonstrates that even companies with the strongest market positions and most beloved products can be destroyed when the people inside them choose warfare over cooperation. In the end, the Twinkie survived its nuclear apocalypse jokes and found new life under different ownership. But the original company and the jobs it provided were casualties of a very human-made disaster that consumed the empire built on America's favorite snack cakes.